Hey guys, Ender here, welcome back to another video. Bit of a surprise update from DICE here. I was not expecting this update to come out, or the patch notes to come out. This coincides with the release of Redux on August 29th. This patch is not out yet, for those of you wondering. It will come out most likely on Tuesday of next week. And surprisingly enough, this patch actually had some very significant changes in it, and it's actually a pretty lengthy one. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, and of course, subscribe to the channel. I stream every single day at twitch.tv/enders. First link in the description. Drop my channel a follow. And if you want to keep up to date with everything that I do, join the Discord and follow me on Twitter. All those links are in the description as well. So this update is called Battlefield 2042 Update 5.3.0, and it introduces a new codex system for the quote-unquote lore of Battlefield 2042. As you all know, I'm the lore master of this game, so that's very important to me. But it also introduces some vehicle count overhauls for some specific game modes and maps, as well as some important vehicle balancing improvements. As far as Battlefield 2042 Redux is concerned, as I said previously, that starts August 29th, and for those of you that might be unfamiliar with what this is, you can essentially play some of the old mid-season events once again. You'll be able to play the Liquidators, Battle of Nordvik, and Leviathan Rising events. Those modes have Rush Chaos XL, as well as Tactical Conquest, Conquest Assault, Breakthrough Chaos, Shutdown 8v8, and Shutdown 12v12, respectively. Also inside of Redux are obviously some new cosmetics, limited time bundles, and previously unobtainable cosmetics that are now unlockable. So that's pretty cool. The people, this is a bit of a recycle of content, but what are you going to do? Whatever. As far as the codex is concerned, this is the quote-unquote lore part of this update. I'm going to blast through this because I don't anticipate anybody will care, except for me because I'm the lore master. The codex is basically an option they added under the profile settings. If you enter your profile settings, you can click on the codex and you can read about all of the lore and narrative behind Battlefield 2042. Hooray. See, me personally, as the lore master, I already understood all of this, but I don't think it's widely known. So as far as the Conquest vehicle count overhaul, they just gave 2 examples in this specific patch note, but I anticipate that they will make further changes to, I think, every single map in the entire game, and maybe even Breakthrough as well. They mentioned in this developer update that they first plan to update vehicle counts for all the reworked All-Out Warfare Conquest maps, and then they will look at Battlefield Portal maps and review the vehicle counts on those maps as well. Exposure was one of the examples they listed here. On Conquest 128 players, they have left the amount of light transport vehicles the same. They have removed the armored transport vehicles from the map entirely, meaning I don't think there's any Mavs or Cab Brawlers anymore. They have not changed anything to do with the amount of light vehicles, heavy armor, gunships, but they have actually increased the amount of attack helicopters from 1 attack helicopter to a staggering 3 attack helicopters, plus a Super Hind, or a gunship category. So Exposure 128 Conquest, let's just say there's going to be a lot of air vehicles flying around, but very confusingly, they have reduced the amount of transport vehicles available on Conquest 128 players, which would seem like the exact opposite thing you want to do on such a large game mode. So definitely some very confusing and very interesting changes there with Exposure. The same sort of changes are reflected in Exposure Conquest 64, in fact the exact same changes, but even worse, to be argued. In Exposure 64, they've actually completely removed the civilian vehicle transport vehicle category, and they have reduced the amount of light transport vehicles from 2 to 1. Makes absolutely 0 sense to me, but I guess you guys better get your ass moving and huff it to wherever you're trying to go, because DICE said so. The other example for the vehicle count overhaul changes they gave was Discarded, and with Exposure, they said Exposure, they're going to focus on air vehicles. With Discarded, they want to focus on ground vehicles. So they essentially increased heavy armor, they increased some of the light transports and stuff like that. They have actually reduced the amount of gunships on Discarded Conquest 64, so there's actually no Super Hind, no Condor, and actually no Jet anymore on Discarded 64. In terms of Discarded 128, they've increased the amount of heavy armor, like MBTs and stuff like that, from 2 to 3, the amount of jets from 1 to 2. The attack helicopter numbers stay the same, and they actually reduced, once again, the amount of transport vehicles here. I don't understand what they're doing there, but I don't know, let DICE cook, or don't care. Moving on to the vehicle changes themselves, here's a quick note from the vehicles team. Quote, we wanted to take a quick moment to discuss some of the changes taking place with vehicles in the game updates. We have seen attack helicopters not performing as well as we would like them to, especially in comparison with vehicles such as the Nightbird and Stealth helicopter in terms of dealing and receiving damage. The changes we're making are as follows. Dealing and receiving damage, currently the gameplay armor/health difference between attack helicopters and their lighter variants are not noticeably felt in fights, and they equally struggle against anti-air weaponry. To address this, we are lowering the damage that attack helicopters take from 30mm AA cannons and Wildcat/flak weaponry explosives by 25%, which will help with better survivability versus their lighter counterparts. We're also changing how damage is dealt to other ground vehicles when using anti-vehicle missiles. These missiles will now deal damage primarily through their blast to ensure they're more effective as an anti-vehicle option. With this change, it's vital that you aim for direct hits to ensure full damage output. These changes affect all air vehicles that use anti-vehicle missiles. And they had this to say regarding gunner improvements for the attack helicopters. We've also realigned the weapon and camera positioning of the front gunner with a wider and better view. This now helps you understand the heading of the helicopter as you traverse across the battlefield. We're also increasing the efficiency of the gunner position through a series of balance changes and the addition of thermal optics. Thermals come at the cost of your ability to zoom, so it's up to you to decide the pros and cons. As far as the attack helicopter changes, in my opinion, the attack helicopters have really always felt terrible in Battlefield 2042. They feel like gigantic boats that are too easy to hit and aren't competitive in terms of 1v1s. They're really not enticing to use, especially after the gunner nerf. Now, when we go over the changelog in this video, which I'm actually going to do right now, you will see that they've actually substantially changed a lot of things regarding the effectiveness with attack helicopters, and this is very welcome. So moving on to the actual patch notes here, Dozer has seen a very strange fix to a bug that allowed him to teleport if he interacted with the robot dog while having his shield equipped. I don't know what is going on with Dozer, but they fixed that, I guess. Crawford saw some minuscule buffs. They buffed his Vulcan turret. It does more damage, and it's more accurate, so that is pretty interesting. For weapons, they fixed incorrect fire rates on the AC-9 Extended and AM-40 subsonic magazines, and they fixed instances where the incendiary grenade launchers weren't dealing damage to players. Moving on to the vehicle category, anti-vehicle missiles damage now primarily deal blast damage instead of, I guess, massive splash damage on top of blast damage. Like I said, I guess this means that you have to hit direct hits now, which is actually good. They've also changed the zeroing point on attack helicopters and jet anti-vehicle rocket pods, so I guess you might have to aim sort of differently. Might have to relearn how to be accurate with them. Barrage missiles will no longer give impulse to the vehicle it fires from, which means that if you fire a missile, it won't sort of move the vehicle in a weird way. And lastly, in the vehicle category, they have completely removed the splash damage of the 20mm flak against infantry, and they have re-enabled the usability of this weapon on its inherent vehicles. Moving on to the helicopter-specific changes here. They've added thermal sights to the gunner seat of helicopters. They fixed an issue regarding exit points, so if you were looking one direction and you wanted to exit the helicopter that direction, you weren't able to do that before. Now you actually can. They have improved the Nightbird first-person perspective in terms of its crosshair position, and they have lowered the yaw sensitivity of all helicopters slightly. They've made this change because, quote, it should be easier for target acquisition and controlling of the vehicle. For the attack helicopter specific changes, the attack helicopter has seen some massive buffs, as I mentioned previously. First and foremost, the attack helicopter tow missile now has 2 tow missiles available to the pilot. So the ammo count has been increased by 1. This is actually substantial. You should be able to do about 70 damage to a tank just with tow missiles alone. I think this might be a little bit overpowered if they didn't adjust the tow missile damage, and if they did, it's not listed in the patch notes. As far as the attack helicopter gunner is concerned, the attack helicopter gunner aiming constraints have been reduced by basically increasing the angle it can look around in, so that's pretty good. They've adjusted some third-person camera positions to make sure in third-person camera you are more centered to your screen. They also increased the gunner rate of fire from this is a crazy change. They tripled the attack helicopter gunner seat rate of fire from 200 to 600. Don't freak out. They did reduce its damage from 20 to 18, and they reduced its starting damage from 40 to 25. However, they have had to tweak the overheat requirements to meet its new fast fire rate, and this is a very, very vague change that I don't understand. Quote, attack helicopter gunner speed reduced from 800 to 350. I have no idea what they're talking about. My best guess is that's projectile velocity. Other than that, I really don't know. They've also reduced the damage attack helicopters take from AA missiles from the Wildcat and flak explosions by 25%. Drag forces have been updated for better hover control and maneuverability, and they made the Super Hokum and Apache Warchief more similar in terms of moving the center of mass around, making them more controllable, adding more or less drag on certain areas of the vehicle. Basically, they should be more responsive control-wise, and they've also changed their inertia tensor so they have similar handling. That was it for the attack helicopter changes. So definitely some substantial attack helicopter changes there. I'm very interested to see how they feel and how they stack up against other vehicles now. Moving on to jets, they've lowered the rate of fire for jet rocket pods from 300 to 240, and they've lowered the pitch stickiness of jets. So you should feel that you can sort of pull up and pitch down a little bit easier. Before, it sort of felt like you're pulling through a wall, and then it kind of slowly allowed you to do it. Should be a little bit more controllable now. And the hovercraft has seen some long overdue, shall we say, changes to its handling. It should be less drifty, less floaty, and just generally more controllable. And finally, they have nerfed the recoilless rifle and the RPG's velocity. This is a much needed nerf, a much needed nerf. That'll be controversial. I saw some people crying on Reddit about it, but it'll be okay. The RPG and recoilless rifle's previous velocity was much too fast. It was way too easy to hit shots from unbelievable distances, and it's still faster than Battlefield 4 SMAW even after this nerf. So I think people are just crying about nothing when it comes to that, and I think people also don't play in vehicles and they don't understand how impossible it was to avoid getting hit by recoilless rifles sometime. So I think this is a great nerf. I think the player base should probably stop crying about it. And yeah, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and, of course, subscribe to the channel. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I stream every single day at twitch.tv/enders. First link in the description. Follow my Twitter, join the Discord, and I will see you guys later.